everyone, it's Nicole from Wicky. Welcome to episode 2 of our cricket podcast that we still haven't found a name for. You guys obviously met Shane last time. He's part of the team at Wicky, knows one of the only people that I've ever met that can actually chat about cricket more than I can. So welcome, Shane.
Hi, it's so good to be back. I'm so excited to just record again, just to like actually get down to the business of recording. Like we've been like talking and discussing and throwing up points and like plans, and it's just like nah, like that's
Yeah,
okay, but that's just prep. I'm just excited to get into the convo now.
lot of planning, not enough doing. But well, I guess the first thing, I think we recorded about a week and a half ago, and at that point we did have a winner in the IPL. I saw my Mumbai Indians unfortunately lose.
Yeah,
Actually, no, sorry, they won the semi and lost the final, right? I'm just trying. No, they lost. No, they lost the semi. Gujarat lost the final. My bad.
yep,
But
that's right.
yeah, definitely went quite differently to what I thought. I was watching, as you can appreciate, it was a ridiculously late time in Australia, so avoided the score, watched the final. And that finish. I might just let you take it away because I assume you watched more of the game than I did live. But I only caught the
I
highlights and it
actually
was amazing.
right. I actually watched more of the Mumbai Gujarat game than the final, to be honest. And I actually didn't mind that too much because I got to watch Shubman Gill bat.
Oh yeah.
Just oh my God! Just did you get a chance to watch his 100 in that
Yep.
game?
In the I well again the highlights, but in the final, I found myself like not knowing who to go for, and I was literally going for Gujarat because of Gill. A, because I wanted to see
Yeah,
him bat for as long as possible, but B, oh my God, it's gonna be so fun to watch him for the next few years.
yeah. Um, he actually didn't do that well in the final. Like a couple of guys got more
No.
runs than he did, but he's just been so important to Gujarat this whole season. Like he's really like 2023. He's become like a beast in all formats. So this year is very much like it's just like this is just building up for him to dominate a home World Cup. I keep getting that
Ooh.
feeling that this is just
Ooh.
going to be his tournament, and um, it kind of sucks because Shikhar Dhawan's actually quite a good one-day batter who's served India really well over the years. But like
Mm.
you like this is you can't ignore Gill for too long. I think like
Man,
and I think
you're
he's
getting
taken
me
his chance with
pumped.
both hands.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually didn't even think about I totally forgot that the World Cup is only a few months ago. I've been so invested in the next 2 months of cricket that like five, not even 5 months. Oh my God, it's just over 4 months away. The one day at the 50 over World Cup. But anyways, we're gonna get to that in a second. I guess just before we get on to cricket now, keen to think of what you thought of the IPL season. I know a lot of people liked it because it was a close season. The final finished in miraculous circumstances. That was even watching the highlights, it was so thrilling. But what do you think of this IPL season? Obviously, like the first season where we've had, is it the first season they've gone to proper full home and away since COVID, or the second?
Yes, that's right. Since
It is.
2019, I think. So like
Wow.
it was kind of like like you could almost see teams almost trying to readapt to home conditions.
Yeah.
It's like these are conditions that so many of them have played so much cricket in, and yet you have kind of had to see them sort of readapt to um, unfamiliar conditions in a way, but also like super familiar conditions. It was a good season. I thought. I feel there was plenty to get excited about, be interested in. The explosion of Rinku Singh is a superstar is just oh my god! Like he is. So he's someone whose progress I've been following for quite a while, and a friend of mine is also like him and I we had a podcast of our own a while ago, and we discussed endlessly about Rinku Singh and how he's going to dominate for India and how he's going to be like this big superstar, like this, like UP's next big batting talent, etc. And it was just so satisfying to see him like get that kind of acclaim on
Mm.
like the really big IPL stage and come to the attention of a lot more people. I thought that was just like so he was one of the highlights. I think Shubman Gill dominating the IPL was obviously like super fun to watch. The 100 against Mumbai was just like it was just a highlight. It was just so good. Just he like he's getting the runs obviously, but he always had the style points I think, but he's like
Mm.
genuinely getting the runs now. Like he's getting that monstrous output, like just in terms of sheer statistical weight, he's like finally measuring up to his potential.
Yeah, I think the thing with Gill is like I've got a really weird background with cricket. Grew up in India, so I watched a lot of cricket in the 90s. Then moved to Australia where like cable TV and watching cricket around the world isn't that common. So it was like probably a decade where I probably didn't watch a lot of cricket. And then in the last 10 years, I've again watched a lot of cricket. But then I find that with Shubman Gill, I just liked him because I saw him come out to Australia and it was just so beautiful to watch. But again, I think he got the 91, I think it was, in the Gabba win,
Yes.
or 88, whatever it was.
Yes.
But yeah, great innings, right? But it's the kind of thing that like I was so invested because it was India, Australia, in Australia. But maybe a lot of people in the world, like, because he didn't get that century, like they probably didn't
Yeah.
realize how special or how well he played. Oh my God, him versus Stark. Oh, incredible. Anyways, but then seeing get all these centuries like earlier in the year, I was thinking, oh, maybe the pitch was flat, maybe the bowling attacks went full strength. But then to see, and I also know he struggled for KKR. Even I don't get to watch a lot of games live in the IPL, but even from my knowledge of the IPL, I was like, he struggled for KKR. But then now to see him exactly as you said, just like flourish and just go, I think 300s for the tournament. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Was it? I think it was 300s at the second most runs ever, just behind Corley's
Yeah,
970 odd. I think. I think he got
973.
like,
Yeah,
no,
he finished on
yeah,
890, I think,
that's
for the
right. Yeah,
season.
just absolutely incredible. But anyways, look, enough about Gill. I think we might spend the next 20 minutes talking about him. With the Blast, it's even worse for us Aussies as a time zone. So I've been following the highlights, following the scores a little bit. But what are your sort of initial takes on the Blast so far this season?
In fairness, like I lost a little bit of touch with the Blast after the first, like, let's say week and a half or so. It was also because that was also the time for State of Origin, and like I got caught up in the hype for that as well. Oh my God, incredible atmosphere, incredible game, so much fun. Um, yeah, so it was. It's been sort of I've been trying to catch up with the Blast every now and again when I can, and I think we covered the first week or so of the Blast when we sort of last sat down and recorded an episode. There's a bit more that's happened since then, but not that much more. I think this is the last. I think there's Blast games every day from now until Friday, and then the next set of Blast games is only on the Friday after, so it's about like a week
Right, right.
off for there. So it's kind of like a nice stopping point for the season. Um, Sort of almost midway through. But it's been good fun. Like I've been sort of I've been following the Blast through players rather than through teams so much. I think it's also because there are a ton of teams and like so many games on at the same time that I can
Mm.
realistically only follow like a couple of them like with my full attention. Um, and I have can we just go back? I know we talked about him in the last episode, but can we go back to talking about James Vince again, please? It
There we
was
go.
Oh yes. So in the last episode, we mentioned that James Vince has been on an incredible run of T20 batting form over the last year since the last
Probably a
PSL, I
couple of
think, or the
years,
PSL
couple of
before
years,
last.
because he did really well in
Yeah.
the Big Bash a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that as well. Yeah. So he's basically just picked up where he's left off in this year's Blast as well. He's currently the second top scorer. He's already sitting on 350 runs.
Oh,
He 350 runs in 5 innings. He averages 175. So he's not bad, eh? Um,
wow.
and I just just to sort of really appreciate like how he's just been at it right from the off. I just want to read out his scores in the Blast this season, and just it's just a run of scores that you can enjoy just for um just for the just when they're read out. Like I think some players do have that. So okay, first game of the Blast against Somerset, he makes one, followed by 88 not out, 103, and 71 not out.
What? That's just a joke. Can I ask a question from someone who doesn't follow the Blast on like a day-to-day basis, right? The bowling attacks that he's facing. I know in Australia, a lot of people pay out the BBO because you get a lot of domestic bowlers that, yeah, like the quality just isn't, the depth isn't great. Is it a little bit of a case of that in the Blast?
Definitely a little bit of case of that in the Blast. I'd say but that's also definitely been the case for Vince pretty much in all of the leagues he's played across like over the last
Yeah.
year or so, whether in the PSL or in the BBL or in the Blast or whatever. I'd really love to see him get a chance in the IPL while he's playing so well.
Mm.
I think that's the ultimate test. Um, I wonder if he could ride this wave of form back into the England team as well. There's a T20 World Cup next year, I think, and it's obviously a while away, and there's like an ODI World Cup first, and there's like it may as well be like 10 years from now, given how far away it is.
Yeah, in
But
T20, I think it's a long time.
that's a long
And
time.
he
Yeah,
must be quite old, right? I'm assuming Vince is early 30s.
he's early 30s. Yeah, so
Yeah, I
he's
would have said
sort
early
of
30s. Yeah,
right at the age where he'd be playing his best cricket. So yeah, and which he
yeah,
is.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I think the other one you're mentioning, one of the Aussies, Ben McDermott. I remember you mentioning him. I
Yes.
can't remember if it was a good mention or a bad mention. What's he been up to?
So he's been Vince's opening partner at Hampshire. He's not done as
Uh,
well, that I will say, but he actually had his first big innings of the Blast um, a few days ago when they played Sussex. So they like Hampshire completely dominated Sussex start to finish. They had them like in desperate trouble at like 100 for 7, something like that. And then Sussex eventually recovered to put up 145 or so. And Hampshire chased it down and won by 10 wickets. It was
Jesus,
Vince and
yeah,
McDermott who got all the runs between them. And McDermott, I think, won player of the match as well. And they won it pretty easy with like five, six
nice.
overs to spare, something like that.
Yeah, are there
Yeah.
any other, just because I think my impressions of T20 cricket are so much based on on the BBL, obviously living in Australia, like perfect time of the year, perfect time zone, obviously. Are there any other Aussies that are sort of standing out this year in the Blast so far?
That's a good question. I think um,
Or
hmm. I'd have to
anyone doing miraculously badly? I'd love to hear about those too as well.
I'd have to have a think about that actually. I haven't sort of focused so much on the Aussie guys in the Blast um,
That's probably not a
so
good sign
far.
then, because I'm sure if someone was doing really well, you'd remember straight away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that'll be really interesting. I'm so keen to see this year's BBL because it's going to be shortened. I don't know if you saw that news, but I think it's gone from like
Yes, it is.
60 games to 45, roughly, whatever it is. But it's been shortened by quite a bit. A lot of the fans in Australia, I know, complained that it was too long, so it'll be really interesting. But the
Yeah.
WBBL is still going to be the same length, so I think it'll be, I think like a
Yeah.
really nice balance of cricket because I know the Aussie summer. I think it's South Africa and Pakistan. Is that right? Pakistan and West Indies, maybe actually. But
Yeah.
it's not.
Might
It's
be.
not to be disrespectful, but it's not the most exciting summer of Test cricket. So I think it'd be really nice to have less Big Bash games and a more meaningful time. Provide more context as well around it.
Hmm.
With not a big blockbuster summer of Test cricket.
Hmm.
So I think I think there's a couple of things, a couple of players that you wanted to go through, and a couple of teams as well. Who's sort of standing out in the Blast so far this year?
Well, James Vince was the first name that I had for players who were standing out.
Yeah,
Um, and just to sort of circle back to McDermott for a second. Now, with McDermott, he got his like first big Blast innings. I think he made some 60 odd in the Sussex game a few days ago, and he was actually, I would say, he was probably at his like absolute best maybe a year ago because last season he was really good in last season's Blast. He got several hundred runs, like some 500 runs or something, and you'll remember this actually. He was coming off the back of a really good Big Bash
yep,
season the
yep. He got
previous summer when I think he made.
got 100, a couple of big scores. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he got like back-to-back hundreds as well. So like it was
Mm.
just like he's actually kind of like just like he's just past that like really golden run of form where he did like fantastically in two competitions. But this is kind of like this is one of a like this is something I'm working on. We may and you might see this across the wiki socials at some point when I like actually get my chance to sink my teeth into it. But he's actually a fantastic hitter of off spin bowling. I don't know if you know this, but I was just sort of looking at his numbers from like his absolute peak, like the sort of 21, 22 that run. And
Mm.
like in last season's Blast and last season's Big Bash, he's across those two competitions, he struck at 195 against off spin bowling.
I can imagine
Um,
that. Yeah.
and it was about like a and it was about maybe like it's like some 50, 60 balls, I think it was from memory. Um, and it just completely and it really surprised me because if you remember, he wasn't that effective in last season's Big Bash as he was the season before last.
Yep. Yep.
So this is kind of like a sign that even when he's not playing at his best, he actually still retains that ability to just absolutely massacre off spin bowling, which I thought
Yeah.
was quite
I
interesting.
think the thing that I was going to say about Ben McDermott, and again, my sort of impression of him is mainly based around the BBL. He seems like he's got so much power and he's got like this clean, compact technique. And it almost feels like he's very hot and cold. I know that from his bloody super coach scores.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's like on the days that he's on, it just looks like nothing could ever go wrong with this guy. But I'm feeling
Yeah.
like really good quality pace bowling, especially. I think it just doesn't seem like he has that like top end technique for really good quality bowling,
Hmm.
and obviously like that's the case for most of the guys. If you're not making the Aussie team, there's obviously reasons
Yep.
behind that. So I know it's a bit of a generic thing to say, but why I said it
Yep.
wouldn't surprise me that he's good against off spin is I can't imagine many off spinners getting much turn in Australian T20 games.
Mm,
So you got off spinners
yeah.
bowling like flat skiddy offies, and he's just hitting it out of the park. I can definitely imagine that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but on the topic of spin bowling, I know the big thing that they're talking about with the Ashes coming up is Jack Leach, unfortunately being ruled out of the
Hmm.
Ashes. And you mentioned, I don't know if I misread this, but I think Cricket for one of the big sort of cricket sites mentioned Rehan Ahmed as a potential option, but you were talking about his blast stats recently as well.
Oh yeah, so I actually put this out on Twitter and across socials the other day. But Rehan Ahmed is, if you sort of heard about him fleetingly last season, he became the England men's youngest ever Test player,
Yep.
and there was all this hype around him because like he's actually played for England at such a young age in all formats and so on. But and obviously because we were looking at it in the context of T20 cricket and the
Yep.
Blast and so on, I was like, oh, I wonder how Rehan Ahmed's going. I was like, it just sort of like completely out of curiosity that I ended up looking up his numbers, and so it turns out he's actually quite a good T20 bowler as well. And I sort of put together a bunch of numbers after doing some digging and like looking at the data and stuff. And I sort of threw it out there on Twitter.
For a lot of spinners, I think it's really interesting in the Big Bash. Like there's a really big divide between the Aussie spinners and the overseas spinners. So yeah, I'm keen to see what you have to say about Rehan Ahmed in the Blast.
Yeah. So I mean, with Rehan Ahmed, it was I ended up looking at his numbers and I thought, oh, like this guy's actually like a half decent T20 bowler as well. And so last season's Blast was his first ever season of Blast cricket. He's not played that much T20 cricket, which is kind of understandable. He's only 18. He's I think he's played fewer than 30 games. And sort of like the first thing to know about him is he mostly bowls through the middle overs and he bowls a little bit of the death. And an economy of 7.26 through that middle phase, I thought was quite like it was quite good. And he was actually really good when in comparison to a lot of the other bowlers at Leicester. And they are a team who um, they didn't qualify from the North Group last season, and currently they just got their first win of the Blast this season, like a few days ago. So but I thought he really stood out among a lot of the other guys at Leicester, particularly Callum Parkinson, who's the other like, sort of main spinner, like a left arm spinner um, at
Mm.
um, at Leicester, and he was sort of neck and neck with him last season through the middle overs in terms of their economy, which is almost identical. And his dot ball percentage, I thought, was like just a touch higher than Parkinson's, which was also like quite significant. Like I wouldn't have predicted that for him. And I think the sort of really important bit is okay, fine, like maybe kids having his kid's first season is really good, and he has kind of had like a bit of second season syndrome where he's not
Mm.
quite managed to reach that same level this season. But the really interesting bit I thought was how you know looking at his numbers this season in the Blast, and I think Leicester played later today, so like the
Yep.
timing of this could be better. But he uh, I found it really interesting that even though his numbers are down in pretty much every respect this season compared to last, whether it's in terms of wickets or in terms of his overall economy rate or in terms of his, uh, like other really important numbers, I found it interesting that his economy rate through the middle overs, which is over 7 to 16, is still below 8, which was quite significant. I thought that even though um, he's not having such a good season, is actually the one statistic, like it's the one aspect of his game which is controlled through the middle overs that's managed to stay relatively consistent or the most consistent out of all his other skills. Um,
Yeah,
Sort of
I think for
even
me,
in the general sort of yeah.
sorry, I was just going to say, for me, the thing that stands out is you're talking about consistency with an 18, 19-year-old. So, like, I think that's
Yeah.
consistency for a young leg spinner in T20 cricket. Those two things usually just don't go hand in hand. So that's pretty cool in itself. And I've been trying to hold myself back, but I have to. When you say Rehan Ahmed, obviously, I know we're going to talk about the World Test Championship final. I might leave that for last because I really
Yes.
want to just very quickly get into the Ashes.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
aside from obviously, it's just hit the news that Leach is going to be missing out. I know it's really funny, like living in Australia, state of origin's like all the hype at the moment, and there's been a really big injury in the New South Wales camp. And I love how the
Mm.
media just everyone, like they just can't help themselves. They all have to talk about the one big selection issue. So
Yeah.
what do you think? Would England go safe, or are they going to go with like an attacking spinner?
Oh, I was going to say, I thought you were going to ask me about the New South Wales camp selection
No, no, I won't
issues.
ask you about that. Not today. Yeah.
Not yet, not yet. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they sort of went for like a Rehan Ahmed type. One thing I will sort of, say though, actually, like if they pick Rehan Ahmed to replace Reach, they need him to do a lot of bowling.
Mm.
I can't remember who it was right now on Twitter who just threw it up there that Jack Leach has actually bowled like the most overs of any bowler in the Ben Stokes Bazball era. So like it's just like the volume of overs that you need to replace with Leach out injured
Mm.
is probably going to weigh on their minds when they come to picking a replacement, like somebody who just can bowl like bulk overs and not somebody who you're who like 5 overs into an expected 30 over spell, like he's going at 30 runs and over and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
think you wouldn't you'd be a little more hesitant about that.
Mm. Man, that is, oh, I can't wait. I just want to fast forward a couple of weeks. But okay, sure. I think just well, we've started talking about the Ashes. Let's just talk a little bit about the Ashes and then we'll get into the WTC final. The quote that I thought was, well, sorry, not the quote, but there's, I'm all about storylines, right? So for me, like Bairstow coming back from injury, Stokes and Bazball,
Yeah.
like there's so many very obvious storylines. But I think the one, well, like the couple of things that stand out is the Aussie team seems so predictable. Like, well, Hazelwood might be
Hmm.
missing early or whatever, but the English team, like mainly it seems pretty spot on. But I was reading this Mark Wood article from earlier this year saying, they both like are going to rotate the quicks. Um, what do you think about both bowling attacks? Like I think the Aussie one, if you go Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, Boland, you can kind of see those guys playing most of the tests. What do you reckon about the
Nisa,
England? Oh, sorry, Nisa as well. Oh, I don't.
Lion.
Well, obviously, like, yeah, sorry, but like out of the quicks, I was thinking,
Yeah,
like, I don't know if they'll play Nisa for more than like one or two tests. I think
yeah.
they'll go down like this is our like that's what Australia's traditionally done. They've gone, this is our team. Like
Hmm.
they did that in Australia, obviously against India, and it didn't pay off with the
Yep.
Gabba. What do you
Yeah.
think about England? Like, who would their sort of top sort of 5 or 6 quick bowlers be, and how do you think they'll manage their fast bowlers? Can't tell.
I do think that. Oh, so I actually got a chance to watch England against Ireland in the one-off Test match they just played.
Yeah.
I was definitely more impressed with England's batting than I was with their bowling.
Yeah.
Like on a relative level, I mean, you can't really say much about. You can't really say too many bad things about a team when they won by 10 wickets. But or maybe it was like I was more impressed with the Irish batting than I was with the Irish bowling. Maybe that's the better way to put it.
Mm.
But with England, I think uh, they've definitely got. I think that Pfeiffer was so important for Broad to get that against Ireland on the first, like just without Anderson, just like he went in first test of the summer, got his 5. Like that's going to like. I mean, he's obviously going to be hoping that Warner plays as many games as possible. So that should be fun to watch out for. I really feel like it feels like they've got like a ton of fast bowling options available to them, and they do. But I still do feel like their best bowlers aren't really in any doubt. I think it is.
Mm.
I think if they do go with the three of let's say Broad, Anderson, Robinson, I think that would be like a very very strong three. I think I was very very impressed with how Ollie Robinson bowled in Australia last time. Not his spin bowling. He
Oh my
was.
God, don't remind me of that. That's not fun. Not fun to watch at all.
um,
Can I say, Mark Wood, does he play 2 tests or 3 in the Ashes? Or less or more, obviously, but what do you reckon?
Depends. I think it depends on how England are doing. Like if they're ahead, they might choose to rest him.
Okay.
If they're behind, they might use him as a bit of a point of difference. Chris
Mm.
Woakes was somebody I was kind of surprised to see not playing at Lords against Ireland. He obviously did very well against them when they last played a Test match against Ireland, also at Lords 2019. He's generally a very very good bowler at Lords. One of my favorite English players as well. So
Yeah.
there's a bit of personal bias there that I wanted to see him.
Yeah.
But like I think they've got enough quicks who are bowling really well to be able to rotate effectively. And this is
Mm.
kind of like this is sort of slightly unrelated, but Vokes like being out injured for part of the India series in 2021 was like you watch that team in the first game at Nottingham, and you watch that team like the first couple of games of that series, and you could tell that they were really missing Wokes. And I think the
Mm,
fact that he came into the team for like when he played at the Oval and the instant difference he made to that team, could just tell that wow, this guy's such a good bowler at home. Like he's pretty much an all rounder. He's got a Test 100 against India at Lords, if you remember. So he just
mm.
he kind of just dominates that ground. And he's just like he's a really good Test cricketer in home conditions. I want to say it that way. So like I think he's another like one to keep an eye on throughout the summer and throughout the Ashes and see
Yeah.
how he goes.
So if you got Broad, Anderson, Robinson, Wokes, and Wood, can you see anyone else getting a go out of the quicks?
That's plenty. I think that's plenty. I think especially with Stokes, if he bowls a little bit, they may not feel the temptation to like try out another seamer. I think it'll
Yeah,
just
I
be
really
safe.
hope he doesn't go hard in the first test. Like, there's just absolutely no need for him to bowl. Like, there might be some need, but yeah, anyways,
Yeah.
I just hope he doesn't get himself injured in the first game. All right, this is the perfect way to segue into the WTC final. Last last point about the Ashes. Well, it might not even get to the Ashes, but David Warner has come out of the Aussie media. Look, the quote wasn't exactly right, but it was along the lines of he wants to retire this Aussie summer. And I'm looking at
Hmm.
6 tests in England and looking at his form in the last couple of years, and I'm thinking, how
Does
does
he
he
make it
get
to the
through?
summer?
How does he get through
Yeah.
6 tests? Leaving
Yeah.
my personal bias aside, does he make it through the English summer?
Uh, yes.
Or
Even if he
how?
even if he gets dropped, I think he'll come back for the home summer. Let me put it that way.
Oh, that would be.
Or actually,
Oh,
that's the I don't know if this was what you were asking, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I reckon he survives the English summer that his Test career doesn't end there. Uh, but I'm not sure he survives the English summer in that he doesn't get dropped throughout the 6 tests. Let me put it that way.
Okay, okay, okay. Like, you reckon he may miss out on a test and then come back? Is that what you're saying?
That might happen, especially if Australia lose.
Cool, cool,
Um,
cool. All right. Well,
but
I'm
like whatever be the case, I mean, even if he gets dropped midway and doesn't come back, I feel like that won't be the end of his Test career.
cool.
I feel
All
like
right.
he'll come back for the home summer.
I'm going out on a limb here. I reckon he does not make the Australian summer. No way in hell. The 6 tests in England,
Okay.
I'll say he gets dropped for the last 2, and that's the furthest he can make. There's no way. You know what? I'm going to put it out there. He doesn't play the fourth Ashes test. Bang. There you go. Like,
Okay.
I'm so,
Okay.
so set um on this happening. Anyways, like, I don't want to say anything more. I just reckon there's the
Yeah.
India test where it doesn't really matter how he performs because it's a one-off game, right? But you
Hmm.
got 3 Ashes tests after that. You got Anderson and Broad, you would say play 2 of the 3. They might get rested for one, whatever. Then you got Robinson, you got Woods pace. And the thing with one, I think he's 36 now, maybe even
Hmm.
37.
Something like
Like,
that. Yeah.
genuinely, I don't want to say old, like he's an extremely fit guy, right? But what they say about all the really good cricketers or the really good batsmen, sorry, is that like the eyes do go. And like when the eyes go, the eyes go. Like there's no coming back from that. You might have fitness, you might have form, you might have whatever else. But if Wood's bowling 150 plus, and then you got like Anderson's movement or like Robinson or whatever, right? Against Warner, I just don't see him playing 4 test matches, getting enough runs to hold his place. And I think like just from other teams coming to Australia, obviously living here and seeing the Aussie summer, is like you when you get a long series, like it's the perfect chance, I think, in a 5 test series to let someone go with 2 games to go. Like, you give
Hmm.
whoever it is, right? I can't even think of who it would be now, but like that, and that's why I think Warner will start the series for sure, because like there
Hmm.
is no obvious batsman to put in his place kind of thing. But if Kawaja's obviously been in great form, and you got you're 4 tests in out of 6, Kawaja's doing okay, and Warner's not. It's a pretty easy decision to go, sorry, mate, but like you got to give the other guy two
Yeah.
tests. You can't drop
Yeah.
Warner after 5 tests of the 6 and give the other guy one. So that's why I'm
Yeah.
very confident in my call of 4 tests,
Yeah.
end of the third test of the Ashes at most. That's it,
Yeah.
all over. But anyways,
Okay.
we'll see how it goes. We'll see how this call goes like a month or
Okay.
two.
Oh, we completely forgot about Matt Potts for England. There's another quick that they have. So like
Yeah.
they just have quicks. They're they're up
I wish. Do they
they're up
have
to
a
their neck in
left-hander?
quicks.
Do they have a left-handed bowler
Left
that could
arm? No, I
play?
don't think they do. Like Leach was their only
Uh,
left arm bowler from what I
of course.
remember.
Sorry, left left
Yeah.
hand. I
Apart
really
from like a quick bowler, no, I don't think so.
yeah
Not in the
because
squad at the moment, at least, from what I
I.
recall.
Okay, that would be cool. Again, with India, like I just don't get how in a country of 1.5 billion people, they gotta have a. Oh, I know Unadkat's in the squad, but I would have loved like imagine if Umran Malik was a left-hander, left-hand bowler. I would do anything to just get
Hmm.
him in there. Just get him in there. Bowling like
Yeah,
8 overs a day if you have to, but just a left
yeah,
arm bowler bowling 150 would just be electric. Like oh,
yeah.
it is. Sorry, I had to skip ahead to the Ashes for whatever reason. I just think the beauty of like a 5 test series with two teams that
Yeah.
are going to be relatively close. Like, obviously in
Yep.
Australia, they always discuss it in betting terms, but I think just purely like, is there a favorite? Like, I think in the media at the moment with the Ashes, like, is it pretty much 50-50 or is there a favorite?
There's a lot more confidence about England, and especially with them playing at home. Uh,
Yeah,
I would probably say yes. Given that the just the run that they've been on, Australia coming off
yeah.
a series defeat in India. Um, there's question marks about Warner. Um, there's this whole like I think there's a lot more uncertainty over Australia right now than there would be over England because apparently England can do no wrong at this moment.
Sorry, oh my God. So, oh, Jesus Christ. So I just checked one of the betting companies just to see what because like with the betting company, the really good thing that they have is like it's all based on what people are betting on, right? So
Hmm.
long story short, Australia the favorites for the Ashes. What?
Yeah.
What? That's crazy to me. That's insane. Okay, but anyways, like what I was saying is that you were saying England look like they should be
Hmm.
favorites. I agree. I think England overall over 5 games should be the better team, but then you got the betting companies on the other side. So I reckon like what I
Yep.
said before was 50-50. Like everyone's got a different opinion, but it should be a really, really like close series. I really hope that both teams have won a game
Hmm.
3 games in and we get to the fourth test
Yeah.
genuinely
Yes. Yes.
uncertain
Oh my
about
God.
what the hell's
Yes.
going to happen. But anyways, there'll
Yeah.
be a lot of time to talk about the Ashes next time around. WTC
Yeah.
final. This is something where I hope that I had more time to get excited about, but it's tomorrow, so it's really creepy. I
Yeah.
apologize. Um,
Yeah.
we were chatting about teams and who might play and stuff. The Aussie team obviously very settled. I am shit scared of Cam Green. I got to say, oh my
Yeah.
God, the way he was batting. I know it was T20. I know it was in India, different pitches, different conditions. I get that, but the way he was batting and like he's already been so impressive at a very young age, obviously. Um, yeah, I'm really worried about the Aussie middle order. Like
we.
I
Yeah.
can imagine like the Indian quicks, like getting maybe 2 or 3 down early, like moving ball, like making some inroads,
Hmm.
but then like one of Smith and Labuschagne with like Head getting some quick runs and Green just frustrating
Hmm.
India. But
Hmm.
what's your sort of feeling now with the game being tomorrow?
I said, and on the last episode, I said Australia would win. I'm going to stick by that. I was kind of surprised to see this, but like India's two best quicks probably in England over the last like bunch of tours, etc., have probably been Bumrah and Nishant, and like neither of them are going to be involved tomorrow. Um, Shami is obviously one of the main fast bowlers. He actually doesn't have that good of a record in England. I don't know
I
if you
think
know
he
this, but
will. I
he
think he will
averages
by this time though,
40
because
with the ball. Yeah,
yeah,
against he'll get to go with the Australian lefties. You're saying?
yeah. I think with Chummy, like obviously I watched him over the last 10 years, right? I think he's always had this role where I know nothing about the guy, so I'm just sort of putting my opinion out here. Um, I think he's always had that role of being like the second, the third. Like he's always been like the backup seamer. But I think with no Ishant around, no Bumrah around, I think like knowing that he's the spearhead and like the older, quick in the
Hmm.
attack kind of thing, I think that'll actually like
Yep.
suit his bowling really well. Whereas in
Yeah.
previous times, he's gone for like too much movement or he's just been a little bit erratic or inconsistent. Whereas this
He's too
time,
short with his length, and then the
he's
batsman plays and
sorry.
misses. Like,
Yes. That used to be the big thing about Shami, right? Whereas I think
yeah.
now it's like I think he feels a sense of like belonging in the group. He's the oldest bowler. A sense of responsibility,
Hmm.
knowing that there is
Interesting.
no
Yeah.
Bumrah or there's no other quick there that you kind of like. Siraj is great. Like I'm really excited to see him bowl, but obviously he's still young and young in his career. So I think Shami will be fine. What I'm really
He's
worried
almost
about is
30, I
what
think.
Siraj is
Siraj?
almost 30? Damn.
Yeah. I
But
think he was
he
born in 94, I want to say. So he's like 29, 30.
wow. Okay. I thought he'd only been playing for India for like the last 3, 4 years. Was it been longer now?
I mean, yeah, I mean, his international career has not been that
So he
long,
started a bit
but
later
it's been long enough.
for Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's been
yeah.
long enough.
Interesting. Cool, cool, cool. Well, anyways, I honestly think my tip that India would win was from the heart because looking on paper,
Yeah.
I'm looking at their team and India's batting has scared the shit out of me for the last 3, 4 years at
Mhm.
least. You got, I just don't know what to expect. Like, obviously Gill's been in
Okay.
amazing form in all forms of cricket. Really excited to watch him. Rohit and Kohli, I'll be holding my. I'll just be so nervous watching them. Pujara, like
Mhm.
like he's been playing county cricket. He's got some good scores earlier as well. I saw. So like Pujara's probably the only one that I actually go in thinking, oh, I trust him in these conditions in
He's done
this
well
type of
against
game.
Australia before as well. Like he
Obviously,
seems to
yes,
relish the challenge.
yeah, but with the other guys, like this is. I think we were talking yesterday on our sort of work chat that I'm all about storylines. I'm all about legacy and all this kind of stuff. And I just don't know how many of the Indian and the Australian side, to be honest, how many of these guys are there 18 months from now? Like I'm thinking, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised to see at least 3 or 4 players from both sides not make it to the
Mm.
big tour in 18 months. And correct me if I'm wrong here,
Yep.
but we've got the Ashes obviously coming up after this. We've got the 50 over World Cup. Aside from that, are
Yep.
there any major series or tournaments in the next 18 months between like these sides?
Um,
Obviously,
Not
the
that I
Ashes have just been
recall.
played
Not off the
out.
top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah, like because we just had like a big India England or in the last
Mm.
year or two, right? So I just think for a lot of these sort of legends of the game, they might not make it to 18 months from now. And like this is I know it's weird. Like I wanna get excited for this game, but just the fact that it's one game, I find it
Yeah.
hard to like usually with a test series, you'll be gutted if your team loses because it's a 5 day
Yep.
game, multiple times
Yep.
over. You get time for storylines to build and everything. But even when we lost to New Zealand, when India lost to New Zealand last time, I didn't like feel that sense of like despair. Whereas if India lost in
Mm.
a series to like Australia, for example, I would be absolutely gutted. But if India loses this
Mm.
game, I'll be like, oh damn. Like, there's that sense of I
Mm.
forgot who it was in the media said that this should be a 3 game series. I understand with the
Yep.
scheduling, it's hard, but even 2 tests, and I don't know how you would decide the winner if it was 1-1 after two. I understand that 3 would be too hard to schedule, but I just think that one's
Mm.
not enough. Like I just wish there was more of this, but yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Less confident in my India tip
Um,
now.
yeah. One thing I would say about whether you will see these guys in 18 months from now, etc., is like the thing with Indian cricket is you're never like really out of the team until like you're really, really out of it. And even then, like
Mm,
unexpected comebacks are or out of the blue comebacks are like they are not unheard of. They happen all the time.
that's
And
true.
like this is something that you get used to with following Indian cricket over the years, etc. I mean, like if you were to just look at old test match scorecards in isolation, if you were to look at old historical records, year by year, game by game, you'll see the same sort of like clutch of names going back 20, 30 years and in identifiable patterns. You know that a 90s team would have Tendulkar, Azharuddin, and Nayan Mongia and Sidhu and like those kind of players, Ganguly, Dravid, and then later Ganguly, Dravid, Lakshman, and then later you'd have Kohli, Pujara, Rahane, um, Rohit, obviously increasingly, KL Rahul. Like you sort of like roughly know who plays in what era, and you'll see most of those players in a particular match if you
Yep.
pick them at random. But there'll always be like this one like seemingly random, unexplainable
100%.
ace in
Yes.
the side. Like
Yep.
there'll always be one of those. Like W.E. Raman famously opened in South Africa like in 96, 97, like 8 years after he first played for India, something like that.
Yep.
Uh,
There was a
there's
phase in
always
the
this
late
one random
90s
name.
and the early
There's
2000s where it was either
Yeah,
like, obviously there was no Mungia, but there'd either be like a keeper randomly going to open, or like the
yep,
opener would just be slotted in, and like you're just like,
yep,
who the hell was this guy? Or like, it's not
yeah,
not to be disrespectful, but it's just like Yes, the random player point I get. Sorry, I was
You know?
distracted for a second
Yeah.
because I was googling the age of the Indian guys. Right, interesting to know. It's Rehan's birthday today, but so
Yeah,
Rehan is
yeah,
35, Pujara is 35, Kohli is 34, and Rohit Sharma is 36. So looking at
yep,
that and looking at the fact that like none of them have great records in the last 2 years, I think the only thing I can think of is I can see Pujara making it just because he's prioritized Test cricket. He'd be staying fit. I think in a way, God, I hope they do make it to that tour because I'm kind of making it a personal mission to try to go to every single test match next summer. That's like a
yeah,
little personal
yeah,
goal of mine. So it would be
yeah.
so cool if like almost all of these guys were playing and it was like
Mm,
retirement tour for both because it's the Aussie summer,
yep,
right? So
yep.
like a lot of the Aussies would want to retire here. The Indian guys
Mm,
would know that it's the last big test series, I assume, for a while for them. And if they didn't get to retire at home, this would be the well, for me at least. I hope they fly out
yeah,
here. This would
yeah,
be the perfect time to end up. So anyways, the
yeah.
Indian guys are all sort of like 35, and I remember the Aussie. So I think Steve Smith is same age as Kohli. I think so. He's around 34
He was born a year later, 89.
later. Yeah, okay, I'm fine. He might be
It
33,
was actually his
34.
birthday 4 days ago,
Oh, well, there you go.
as was
But
the
anyways, like
was and
just
Angelo Matthews.
amazing.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay,
and George
cool.
Loman.
Well, there you go. It's a busy time
Yeah,
for birthdays. No, but anyways,
yeah.
look, it's going to be epic game. I really do hope that the rain doesn't. Oh no, actually, sorry, I saw the forecast. It should be sweet. A little bit of rain on day
Okay,
4 apparently, but generally it's meant to be fine.
should
It's
be okay.
great.
Yep,
I think next time we catch up, which will most likely be after the WTC final and before the Ashes, we'll have a lot
yep,
more to dive into. But I kind of
yep.
hope Warner does get some runs because I want to kind of go into the Ashes. There's a lot of
Yeah.
confidence, and then just Broad Anderson go bang bang. Oh my god, I can't wait. But yeah, we'll pack a little bit more blast
Yep.
analysis into the next one. I hope you guys have enjoyed how what have we covered? We've covered a bit of IPL, bit of blast, the WTC final, a bit of Ashes. I think next week or next time we do this, we'll try to get a little bit more variety. We could maybe ask some guys on Twitter, some of the sort of people on
Mm,
Twitter if they have any questions or anything they want us to look into. I think from an analysis point of
yep,
view, but I think from like
yep,
a general cricket chat point of view, there'll be a lot to go through. I can't wait for the game
yep.
tomorrow.
Yes.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks to Shane for obviously going through some of the analysis as well. If you do want to check
Yes.
out any of our stuff, if you just Google Wicky Linktree, come to wiki.ai or just look at Wiki AI on socials, you'll see a lot of the analysis that Shane puts out. And obviously next week we'll be back with a podcast as well. Cool. Thanks, Shane. Thanks, guys.